Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink with a really fun trifold card design using this new True Love Colorize Thinlits wafer die set from Holtz. I had to get this set. I thought it was adorable. So, like a lot of Tim's wafer die sets, when you first pull the wafer dies out of the package, it is very overwhelming. I get it. It's just like, oh my God, what? Biggest recommendation I can make is lay everything out. Things start to make more sense. Once you kind of lay everything out, you look at what you've got. And I think there are some guides online, especially with these ones that say that they're colorized wafer dies because they have lots of layers. There are different like videos and picture layouts, different things like that. So if you Google it too, that can help just again to see things, but right off the bat, lay them out. And with this set, I was super overwhelmed, but then once I, put everything in like shape, so the big hearts that are obviously for like the chocolate box, set those onto the side. And then all these other shapes, I put like all the rectangle, all the square, all the circle, all the heart. And then there's these dies that have the little embellishments on top. And those I matched them up, but I kind of set them off to the side. So after I had them all laid out, I was like, okay, this makes sense. The next thing I did was I started die cutting. I grabbed just a bunch of scraps of different shades of, brown, ivory, a couple shades of pink, because obviously. And for me, I found the easiest way to do the die cutting was just do all of the same style together. So I did all of the little, like the bases of these little chocolates and die cut them. And they're kind of up to the upper left there. You can't really see it on screen. But I did all those from just dark brown cardstock. And then this set of dies, these cut the little like crinkly, it would technically, I think, it's meant to be like the edge of the wrapper. I didn't bother really emphasizing the fact that, they're sitting in their little wrappers. You totally could, because you could do like metallic cardstocks, things like that. But I just used like a lighter shade of brown. And then I die cut the next layer and the next layer, etc. And I kept them all, together. So I have my little piles of, all the circle bases, all the circle little crinkle pieces, the chocolates, and then those toppers I die cut from a variety of like light pink, dark pink, some of the brown, ivory cardstock. So I have everything die cut. It's all laid out for me. Highly recommend some form of detail glue for these. I'm using my KRAFT tacky glue. I have the regular bottle. I have the regular bottle with a fine metal tip. I will have links. And then I have the little bottle that I've mentioned in a couple recent videos. These are Gina K adhesive bottles that I just filled with KRAFT tacky glue. Use whatever glue works for you. Some people are not fans of the KRAFT tacky. It is thicker. That's what I personally like about it. But just biggest thing is if you've got a detail tip on your glue, it just makes life easier because there's some little tiny pieces in here. So after I have, I got my glue, once you start adhering these, everything really, like laying them out helps. Once you've die cut them, it makes even more sense. Once you've adhered just one, it all comes together and you can't really see it in the video, but these wafer dies do have little, emboss lines and everything just lines up. Once you see it and you adhere it, like there's an emboss line for this little crinkle edge, there's an emboss line on that bigger die cut piece. And then there's another emboss line for the like actual chocolate piece, etc. So it's like, oh, you literally just start lining things up. Even then you can kind of do whatever you want. But the things it does come together. And once you start doing it, it's like, you just kind of go into like a little mass production mode. I got a kick out of, I was watching Tim Holtz live video yesterday. He was showing this whole release and he made a comment about like, you become a chocolatier. And I was like, that's what I was when I was making these. I was a chocolatier. Literally though, I had so much fun. I had an audiobook on. I was just in my zone, adhering all these little pieces, just having a blast and like calling Chris over like every like few minutes. I was like, look at it. Look at the chocolates I'm making. So yeah, it's fun. And it does. It seems more confusing or hard or whatever, but once you actually start adhering them, it's like, oh, this makes sense. After you've done one, they all just start making Perfect. And then you just have fun with it, you know? So I was using different shades of brown. So I was like, I have some milk chocolates and some dark chocolates and some white chocolates, you know, and then all the toppings, I die cut way more than I needed, but that's fine. I'll show what I do with them at the end. And then, yeah, just mixing up what I'm going to add to all of these different ones. Cause there's a ton of different options. Again, sky's the limit. And then if you really wanted to like step this up, glossy accents, glitter cardstock, stickles, all those are like, you know, you glitter, you know, add some glossy accents and sprinkle on some like rock candy distress glitter, chef's kiss. It would look amazing. I didn't do that for this card because I got a lot of other elements gonna go on, but as I was doing these, I was like, oh, that would be so fun. I could like make the chocolate look shiny. Glittery, you know, you could use metallic cardstocks, like just have at her, you know. Biggest thing is just to do everything in steps. It's the same concept as like when I talk about like mass production or anything like that. It just works. Oh, and also like a mini die cut machine help with these little tiny wafer dies helps a ton. The one I was showing earlier, it's the little honeybee one that I have from them. I'll have links to, like, there's Hero Arts has a little mini machine. I've shown the Gemini, my little Gemini mini die cut machine. Any of them, they all work great. They're all fabulous. But it really helps because especially too, if you want to like take all your little cardstock scraps, your little mini machine, your little wafer dies, and you can like sit in front of the TV, you know, get a little TV tray set up and you could just sit and die cut and, you know, do your thing. That works wonderfully too. Like whatever works for you, you know? So I just went to town with these. I figured out you need about, let me actually double check. I think it's like 12, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 12 or 13 chocolates roughly. If you want to fill the box, the heart-shaped box. So I die cut everything, like all the chocolate layers. I did like 4 of each. So I end up with a couple extras, which is, I'm going to use them. But yeah, if you die cut like 4 of each layer, you will have enough to fill the box, and then a couple extras if you want to like adhere them to the outside of the card or, you know, the inside, whatever you want to do. And then, like I said, all the extra pieces, I'm saving those. I'm not getting rid of them because next time I go to use this, I'll have, you know, some little pieces already die cut, ready to go. And I'm not going to be like confused by it like I was at the very, very beginning, like all these die cut pieces, all these die cuts. I was like, ooh. But yeah, once you've done it once, everything just makes sense. So it's like you see a wafer die from the set and it's like, oh, that's the square top piece of the chocolate, you know? So I just worked my way through all the different shapes and I did all the same. So I did all of the like, I just call it, rectangle chocolates, did all those at once. I did all the heart shapes at once. I did all the circle or truffle shapes at once. These last ones were these little squares, did all those at once. And then when it gets to the actual heart box itself, super simple. You die cut the thick outline there, die cut that once, the thin outline once, the highlight strip, whatever you want to call it, die cut that once. The actual like solid heart, you die cut that twice if you want a base and a top, and that's it. And same thing, there are emboss lines in the die cuts that everything just lines up. So to make the actual like base of the box, you adhere the thicker outline to the large heart, and I just did different shades of red cardstock just to give it a little more definition. You could also like do some ink blending. You could do ink blending on the chocolates as well. Again, sky's the limit. Like you could create tons of dimension. So adhere the large outline to that base, and then this little kind of highlight sort of a strip that just adheres just like so, fits into place. And then the really thin outline, again, there's like this, there is a thin little emboss line on the other die cuts to line this up. The thin outline I die cut from some red glitter cardstock just to give it a little extra something something, and then apply just little tiny dots of my adhesive, and then this is going to line up perfectly. And I also use the red glitter cardstock for the other solid heart shape because that will be the top to my box of chocolates. So once you get this outline adhered, it just, you can now see that this is a box, you know? Love it. Love it. And then I couldn't resist. I was like, I have to fill it. So I grabbed all my little die cut chocolates and stuck them into place. And I was like, this is the cutest thing ever. So got those just laid out just for the fun of it. And then I got my top. And there you have the die set in a nutshell. So when it comes to storing them, I keep the sleeve it goes in. I put that packaging printout. I stick that in there, stick all my dies in it. And the dies came in a little like cellophane type baggie. I kept that. And that's what I put all the extra die cut pieces in. And then I just stick it in the packaging. So next time I pull this out, I've got all these little extra die cut pieces that I can use, to assemble some more chocolates, and I'm good to go. So I did all of that. And then I pulled out the BOWTIED Colorize dies. This was part of Tim's Christmas release. I never got a chance to show it in a video, but I was looking at it and I was like, oh, this is the perfect size to add a heart to my box of chocolates. Yes. And this is another die set. When I, dumped out all the dies, I was like, oh no. Overwhelmed. But again, you lay everything out to the like sizes. So there's 3 pieces for the main bow. The 2 L-shaped pieces, those make the wrap. So those you die cut twice. Everything else you die cut once. Those wrap pieces you die cut twice. And it all comes together. There's embossed lines, everything. And then the tails for the bow, there's 3 dies for each. You die cut each those once. You could do it all in the same color cardstock, again, or use glitter, metallic. Sky's the limit. I just used the same cardstocks I used for the embellishments on my chocolate, so a dark pink and a light pink. And then, again, you just adhere it, and it all comes together. Once you've laid out the dies and actually got the die cut pieces, it made a million times more sense. And I was like, why was I avoiding using this wafer die? It's actually so easy. But yeah, I do it too. Serious. I put off sometimes using certain sets because I'm like, oh, I just don't have the time or the brain power. And then when I actually use it, I'm like, why was I doing this to myself? This was not difficult at all. So this whole thing came together super easy. The bow, again, there's like embossed lines and it just makes sense. The largest piece is the bottom. The second largest is the middle. And then the most detailed piece goes on the top. There's the bow. The L-shaped pieces, one is wider than the other. And, oh yeah, I'll get to that one in a second. I did the tails next. Same thing. There's embossed lines, and it just kind of makes sense where the pieces go. And you could do like 3 shades of cardstock with this, and that would look really awesome too, because it would give it even more dimension. But I just, again, kept things a little simpler. So you just adhere those. You adhere the one layer and then the very top layer. And you've got a tail, and then you just repeat the process on the second one. And you could do just the bow or the bow and the tails. You don't even have to do the wrap pieces, but I wanted the wrap pieces because it's going to look super cute, I thought. So adhered all those together. And then, yeah, those L-shaped pieces, one is wider than the other. So the wider piece, I did the darker cardstock, and the ones with the narrower little bits, I did lighter. And again, there's embossed lines. Everything just lines up, and it just gives it that really cool dimension. And in this set, these are the only wafer dies that you die cut twice. So once those are die cut, I've got them adhered together. I'm now going to like lay these out and figure out how I want to adhere them to this solid glitter cardstock heart that's going to be the top of my box of chocolates. So I fiddled with it a bit until I was happy with where I had the like wrap pieces, like where they come together. And then once I was happy with that, I'm just going to use my KRAFT Tacky Glue to adhere these. You definitely want to use a strong adhesive when you're adhering anything on top of glitter cardstock. So I highly recommend like liquid adhesive, depending on the situation or what you're adhering. Sometimes foam adhesive works the best. But I definitely prefer that over like any sort of like tape runner type thing. But again, if you guys watch any of my videos, you know, I like my liquid adhesive. It just works. So I got those adhered, and then I just flipped this over and trimmed off all the pieces hanging over the edge using the edge of that heart as my guide. So then I've got the wrap pieces, and then I'm going to adhere the tails for the bow. So get those adhered into place. And then once all these are adhered, there's like quite a bit of dimension going on because, you know, I've got multiple layers of cardstock, etc. So I just pulled out some of my thin foam squares just to pop behind little parts of the bow here, because that'll adhere really well to that glitter cardstock. Plus it'll just bump it up just a little bit, gives it that little bit of dimension without too much going on, because in the end this card's gonna have a lot of layers between just all the pieces of the hearts, all the pieces of the chocolates, and then the card itself. So there, my heart, my box topper has its bow. For the card itself, I'm going to do a trifold card. I used these A2 clear cards. They're not available anymore. Didn't realize that till I went to do all of my links. However, you can use just a piece of acetate and just make sure either that it is just slightly longer than A2. So what A2 is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I would say like 4 1/4 by 6 would be perfect. Or you could just make an entire A2 card like this from a sheet of acetate. I'll link to Simon's heat resistant acetate. I really like that stuff. It's similar to this. It's that heavyweight acetate. And you could just make a card from that. That works too. So I have my acetate, A2 size. I trimmed off just a tiny bit off one end. And then my card base as well, because I have 2 card bases basically, is Distress Heavyweight HEAVYSTOCK KRAFT. Because I love this stuff. And I wanted something really sturdy. And same thing, I made it into an A2 top folding card, and then I trimmed off just a tiny, tiny bit from what will be the front. Then I flip this over. This is the back of my KRAFT card base, and I'm using score tape. You want to use a very strong adhesive, either score tape, Simon's Terrific tape, red line tape, something like that. You want a strong adhesive. I would not use liquid adhesive for this. It's unless you have like a ton of patience to let it dry. But also I prefer what I call the dry adhesives for things like acetate, because it just works. So I've coated the back of my KRAFT card with this adhesive, and I'm basically sticking this inside the acetate card. And the little tiny piece I trimmed off is also going to adhere to the back. And I only did those little bits of trimming just so things opened up a little easier. Like you could skip that, but that's what I was thinking. So now that KRAFT cardstock is inside the clear one. You could leave it like this, but I want to cover that adhesive because it's not pretty. So I took another piece of KRAFT cardstock that is A2 sized. So 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I trimmed off again, just a little bit, just so it doesn't stick out past the edges. And now I'm going to put another layer of adhesive. This time this is sticking to the acetate that is sticking to the KRAFT. So I'm going to use that score tape, cover the back of this, and then I'm going to adhere that individual panel of KRAFT cardstock so that it completely sandwiches that acetate layer, and then you don't see any of the adhesive. So that's completely covered. So this is the very back of the card. And then when I flip it around, my front panel is acetate, and then I've got the KRAFT, and then it opens, hence trifold card. So I went to all of this work to create this trifold card with a clear front because I thought it would be super adorable to adhere the front of this box of chocolates to it. So again, flipped over that, again, score tape, good strong adhesive. Covered the back of that with the score tape. Gonna peel off the backing and then adhere this to the very front to this acetate level or layer of this trifold card. So I peeled off that backing, stuck that to the front of this card. Again, you could leave it as is, but I don't like when you open it and you see the adhesive. It's just not pretty. And it's a simple fix. I just die cut a piece of just white cardstock with the same large solid wafer die from the True Love set. Again, put the adhesive on the back of it, and then I can line that up on the back side of this acetate, and that'll just completely conceal the adhesive. And then I'm done with the score tape. Don't need it for anything else because the rest is just cardstock to cardstock, although you could use the score tape to adhere the other, part of the box chocolates. But I purposely chose liquid adhesive for this because I was just in case I needed to wiggle it a little bit to get it lined up. So the base of my box of chocolates, I used my KRAFT Tacky Glue, and then I put it upside down on that inside flap of the card just so everything's lined up, and then closed the card. So this is adhered to that KRAFT HEAVYSTOCK. And then I got a fillet So now I'm going to adhere all those chocolates. I kind of followed the packaging, but at the end, I started by following the packaging just to kind of lay things out. And then I just went and did my thing, just stuck them into place. So added all of my little chocolates. And like I said, it ended up being like 12, 11, 12, I think 13, something. 12 or 13 will fill this entire, little box. So once it was full, the remaining ones I'm going to use on the inside. So I've got all my little chocolates here adhered to the box. And then on the inside of the card, keeping it simple, I just wanted to add, or before I get to the inside, I forgot, I added a sentiment to the outside. I used the CZ Design SWOOPY Love You Wafer die. I die cut it from Simon's black glossy cardstock, and then I die cut a second layer from just black cardstock just to give it a little extra dimension, just a tiny little bit, because I'm going to adhere it on top of the front of the chocolate box. And there's, like I'd said, there's a lot of dimension going on with all the layers of cardstock. So I adhered those pieces together, and then I put adhesive on the back of this sentiment, and I'm going to adhere that on top. So it says love you, and the black just kind of pops a little bit, because I've got a lot of red and pink and KRAFT and all that going on. So got the adhesive on there. I'm going to adhere that into place. So I've got a little sentiment on the front. So it says love you. And then on the inside, like inside of the card, I'm using sentiment strips from the CZ Design Reverse Love pack. There was a sentiment that said and chocolate, because it was supposed to be like sending you love and chocolate. I was like, oh, this is why, because I had cut that and chocolate off from some previous project, and I saved them all with the packaging, and it was perfect. So adhered that in the inside, so it says love you and chocolate, and then XOXOXOXO, and that finished off the card. So I hope this all made sense. I hope it clears up and makes it, both of these die sets, the True Love and the BOWTIED, come together, and how easy it is. And then I've got my fun little trifold card that opens up like a box of chocolates. This was so much fun to make. I just love it. But also I love chocolate. So, it was fun. As always, I will have links below the video to my blog post. And in the blog post, I always have picture links to all of the supplies I use. That's always the first link directly below my videos. And then, of course, I have my supply list, all of that in the description box below as well. Links to my social media, all the things. You can check that out below if you are interested. Thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my video. And thumbs up, comment, subscribe if you haven't. And I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.